Hola! The house on Mango Street reminds us all that despite your race, we have all dealt with the feelings that our own Mango Street brings us, making Sandra Cisneros' novel relatable to us all. This story takes us through the life of a young Mexican-American girl named Esperanza and her family. The book revolves around Esperanza's observations of the world around her and her desire to get out of the street named after a mango. For example, my Mango Street was not named after a sweet fruit of my culture, but it was named after a hairy man, which brought a giggle to my young girl heart every time I would say I lived on Harriman Avenue. I lived in a big yellow house with the foundation cracking on the corner of Harriman and Edison. I had friends on the corner of Edison, and across the way on Collis, I also had some friends. However, I did not have any friends on Locke or El Sereno Avenue, and I never quite knew why. I lived in a primarily Chicano neighborhood in El Sereno, which was a border city of 5 other Los Angeles subcities, and this was home to me. It was never explicitly said, but I could never go back to the 2 streets behind my house because it was full of gangbangers and situations a young girl like me shouldn't have been a part of. Actually, the only times I went outside was for the ice cream man or when my grandma would pick me up for church every Wednesday and Sunday. I knew my family had to get out of El Sereno, and this book helped me realize why we did, and grateful for the fact that we did. Especially as a young Mexican-American woman, I resonate deeply with the feelings of the author and the emotions of Esperanza, our protagonist. I intend to dive deeply into this analysis and walk you through this in an efficient and productive way. Let's get started. In English, my name means hope. In Spanish, it means too many letters. Esperanza is the heart and soul of this book. Being both the narrator and the protagonist of the story, we see her deal with sex, death, and womanhood for the first time in her life as she starts to become a teenager. The story revolves around her, so she has the most developed characterization. Just as any other coming-of-age novel, Esperanza deals with an internal conflict to find out who she really is and where she really wants to be. That internal conflict causes her to feel out of place and alone, and in that, she develops a burning desire to leave Mango Street. There's a great amount of growth from the beginning of the novel to the end of the novel on Esperanza's idea of sex in society today. At the beginning, she saw boys and girls so separated that she couldn't even talk to her own brothers outside of their home. But towards the middle of the novel, Esperanza seeks attention and desire from boys at school, and she does so by befriending Sally, who is known for being liked by all the guys. As we know, this leads to Esperanza being sexually assaulted by a group of boys while Sally leaves her alone with them. Leading up to Esperanza befriending Sally, there are instances where she realizes the power that young women such as herself have over men. With the sexual assault, she realizes that with this power, like all other power, comes pain. Esperanza also realizes that she doesn't want to be like Sally, and she doesn't want to escape from the painful reality of Mango Street through sexual interactions. She realizes that she is a talented writer, and she escapes Mango Street through this, but she won't realize this until the very end. The difference between 12-year-old Esperanza and 13-year-old Esperanza is that 12-year-old Esperanza, where the novel begins, is very self-serving and self-seeking, and only wants to find who she is by herself. She only wants to serve herself. She only wants to fulfill her desire to leave Mango Street for herself. But by the end, she realizes that she doesn't live for herself anymore, that she lives for the women around her who are just like her, and that they need to band together as one community. She realizes that she'll never leave Mango Street because it'll always be a part of her. That difference is what makes Esperanza relatable to all ages and all races, even as she is a young Latino girl living in the south side of Chicago. We have all had to mature in our desires and have had to endure the feelings of loneliness and shame and being awkward to find out who we truly are and how we fit into society. Some of us are still doing so. Now moving on to the characterization of Esperanza's little sister Magdalena, otherwise known as Nene. Nene's character serves as a glimpse into what our protagonist Esperanza was like as a little Latino girl. While Esperanza and her friends are talking about their hips growing, Nene sings nursery rhymes. While Esperanza and her friends describe the clouds with metaphors, Nene describes the clouds with everyday Hispanic names because that is what she knows. Her character brings a childlike innocence to the narrative in contrast with her sister, who is trying to find herself and mature. However, even through all their differences, Nene and Esperanza have a special bond that cannot be broken because of their sisterhood. The next character we'll focus on is Kathy. She is known in the novel as being Esperanza's first friend, but what she really is a window into the historical context of this society. Kathy's actions tell us that there was some sort of discrimination that was going on between white people and the Hispanics of Chicago and all over the rest of the United States, most likely. Discrimination is defined as acting upon the stereotypes and prejudice of other races around you. When Esperanza and her family, a Chicano family, move onto Mango Street, Kathy moves her family outside because she says that the neighborhood is getting too bad. Now, without explicitly saying it, Kathy tells Esperanza that there are too many Hispanic families moving into the neighborhood and that she feels threatened by these people. Confidently assuming that Kathy is white, it could also be assumed that she is very privileged, even though she is living in a poor Chicago neighborhood. She still has more opportunity than the Hispanic family that is moving in. That is why she has the opportunity to leave and to get out when that's Esperanza's dream, when all Esperanza's parents wanted to do for her was actually get her into a house. Kathy represents all the people that are stuck in their own ignorance and unwilling to see the change in people. Kathy is able to move on from her humble origins, even though she tries to cover it up with some sob story about intentionality. When Esperanza notices the cracks in the foundation of her house, she says that her father intentionally made the steps like that. That way the rain would fall off of it. Before Kathy moved away from all the new Hispanics that were moving into her neighborhood, she shared with Esperanza that she should not befriend the two little girls across the street, Rachel and Lucy, because they were dirty and not kept well. It turns out that Rachel and Lucy happened to be two of Esperanza's best friends because Esperanza feels comfortable around them because they do not belittle her for her name, which she is very insecure about, or they do not belittle her for her accent or her household values because they share the same ones. These two act as literary foils to Nene and Esperanza, showing the two different types of sisters in Latino communities. Because this book is full of observations that Esperanza has made about her community and the people who live around her, we know that she is looking around to see where different paths of life could take her. For example, if we turn to page 29, there's a short vignette of a chapter that is entitled, "There was an old woman. She had so many children she didn't know what to do." The name of that old woman was Rosa Vargas. Rosa Vargas is a woman who is tired always because she is the only mother of so many children and cries every night because a man left her without even leaving a dollar or a note explaining why. This small window into the Vargas' life shows us that being in a single parent home, whether it's as a parent or as a child, often ends up in chaos. After a while, that chaos becomes just part of everyday life, and even the neighbors stop warning your kids to stop playing from the top of trees and tall buildings and stuff of the like. Because of so much neglect from not only their parent who abandoned them, but their parent who has no time for them, all those children who live in that house must have felt the neglect also from the neighborhood that surrounded them, that gave up on them. The story tells us of Angel Vargas, who, although it's not explicitly said, it could be safely assumed committed suicide. It says that no one was there to watch him the day he fell from the top of a building without and exploding on the ground without even time to say, oh. Because people gave up on Angel Vargas, he gave up on himself. There was no reason to keep moving forward, and there was no reason to push to be better. The short story that follows directly after the one about the Vargas family tells the story of a girl living in a single father home because her mother died when she was a young girl. Her name was Alicia. Alicia's character serves a very similar purpose to who Kathy was. She serves as a window into the historical context of what expectations were in this time period. However, these expectations do not have to do with race, but with gender roles in this Chicano Chicago neighborhood. Because Alicia's mother died when she was very young, she had to take the place of a woman in her household. Her father tells her that she needs to wake up early so she can earn her tortilla star every day. The chapter also says that she inherited her mother's rolling pin and her sleepiness. As we said before, no matter which parent is missing, a single parent household will always result in chaos. At the end of this chapter, it tells us that Alicia is afraid of nothing except for four-legged fur and fathers. This small glimpse into her life reveals to us that she was afraid of her father because of the neglect that he showed her as she was growing up, because of the fact that she needed to mature so fast and take the place of her mother, and it was not what it was all cracked up to be a woman in a household. The fact that Sandra Cisneros juxtaposed both the story of the Vargas family and the story of Alicia right next to each other shows the importance of the fact that a single-parent household will always result in chaos, whether it is a single mother household or a single father household, and whether the parent abandoned that family or whether the parent died. It is all the same because there is a vital piece of that household missing, and it usually results in both neglect, loneliness, and needing to mature quicker than you should. This novel was published in 1984 by a Chicano woman who was on the rise in American literature, along with other female minority authors such as Amy Tan. The following places in the novel strategically set the scene for the emotions and reactions Sandra Cisneros wanted her readers to have after reading and experiencing her story of the young Esperanza and the world around her. Besides being the title of this novel, the house on Mango Street represents hope and is the fulfillment of a promise made from a mother and a father to daughters and sons that one day they would live in their own house. The fact that this house is a symbol for hope is ironic because the Spanish word for hope is Esperanza, the name of the girl who lives here. This rickety tiny home holds up as a symbol for the entire neighborhood. It is not ideal, but it is better than what they had before. With this quote-unquote better than before mindset, the audience can relate to the entrapment of a community like this no matter what race the reader might be. The house on Mango Street does not only represent the pain and confinement of Latino youth in neighborhoods like this, but any other culture who faces challenges being ethnic and a minority in a white society and forgetting where they came from. Another location in this book that we can look to for deeper analysis is the canteen that is in Esperanza's Catholic school. The canteen is a place where the quote-unquote special kids get to eat lunch, when in actuality they just do not have parents at home who will wait for them and make them lunch. Or their house is too far of a walk in order for them to go home for lunch every day. Some say those students who have to eat in the canteen are underprivileged, but this is not the way that Esperanza sees it. The fact that Esperanza so desperately wants to be a part of the canteen reveals that she has been blinded by the confinement of her neighborhood, that she cannot even see the good that does come out of her neighborhood. Unlike the others, she has a mother that is waiting for her at home with food and is waiting for her at a house that she can call home, despite the fact that it might not be the most ideal situation. Esperanza convinces her mother to let her take a lunch to school, so Esperanza's mother packs her a rice sandwich and sends her along her way. Once she finally makes it into the canteen, she is outright told that she does not belong there, and she has a miserable time in a place that she thought would be glorious. In fact, her rice sandwich was soggy, and not even the food that she got to eat was as good as it would have been if she just would have gone home to her mother. This small example of the canteen also stands for the comparison of how many people will come to a new city, state, country, or even a small town with high expectations that are always failed to be met. Next, we will look at the most prominent symbolism and motifs in The House on Mango Street, in an effort to dive deeper into our analysis. It isn't until page 10 that our narrator introduces their name. Her name is Esperanza, and in English her name means hope, but in Spanish it means too many letters. She introduces her Mexican heritage as something with a negative connotation. It's a muddy color. It is the Mexican record my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving. Songs like Sobbing, she says. She doesn't introduce her name until page 10 to emphasize the importance of what names hold and the fact that each name is there for a reason, no matter whether it's Mango Street, or it's Esperanza, or it's Nenny, or it's Kathy. Esperanza makes it clear that she envies the fact that her sister can have two names, being that her full name is Magdalene and they call her Nenny. For Esperanza, there's no cute nickname that comes with it. In fact, Esperanza is one of the only ones in the entire book with only one name. Even the sheepdog that belongs to Meme has two names. Names have a power in defining ourselves, and even though Esperanza may not have two ways it's said, it has two definitions, one with a positive connotation in English and one with a negative connotation, symbolizing the negative and positive connotations of the Spanish and English language in our society as a country. The significance in this is that Esperanza does not embrace her culture as she should and should feel blessed to have. Instead, she feels her name is busy and long and laughable, while in English it is translated to hope. This obsession of naming things and counting the number of names shows that the significance and power of language is understood. The trees that Esperanza admires in Four Skinny Trees are trees that she has personified to admire, because although they do not seem to belong, they have found a way to root themselves in the ground despite the concrete. The way in which they are personified allows for Esperanza to look up to them and relate to them, because she too feels like she does not belong there on Mango Street. However, she does find a way to cement herself and root herself in this society despite the concrete that's literally and metaphorically around her. In this book that's full of intentionality with symbols such as names, it is very important to point out that on page 33 through page 38, there are mention of clouds. Today I want to talk about those clouds and what they mean and the dialogue that's shared between the characters, especially the little girls. The first mention of the clouds is in Darius and the Clouds, where it is filled with imagination and hope, as the last sentence of the chapter is, God, he said, and made it simple, after being asked what the cloud looked like to him. Names come into play when it's Nenny, Esperanza, Rachel, and Lucy all sitting and cloud watching. They do something that I'm sure they're not consciously aware of, but when they're talking about the different types of clouds, they talk about the cumulus clouds, which are the big, puffy, white ones. And then they talk about the nim's clouds that are dark and bring rain to a sunny day. I talked before about the juxtaposition of Esperanza and Rachel and Lucy talking about the types of scientific clouds they were, and about Nene naming the clouds after actual people. What I didn't mention before is how Nene names these clouds. The white puffy cumulus clouds that are usually apparent during the sunshine of the day. She names them after generically white people. She names one Joey, she names one Mildred, she names one Sue. And when it comes to the nimbus clouds that are dark and cover the skies and bring rain, she describes it as Dagoberto and Jose and Alicia and Edna and Alma and Ricky, generically Hispanic names. I don't think she did this on purpose, her in the story as a little girl, but Sandra Cisneros definitely knew what she was doing when she had this scene of the girls unknowingly naming the clouds different names with different connotations, just as Esperanza means hope in English, but has negative connotations in Spanish. There is a comfortability in what you know. For example, when a bunch of Hispanics started moving into Kathy's neighborhood, her first instinct was to get her and her family out of there because it is the fear of the unknown that scares her the most. Races stick together because there is trust and community, and there is a hateful society lurking outside of the realm of literature. If this fear was gone, maybe things would be better and a big step toward unity would be made. Maybe if we were to replace fear of the unknown with curiosity, there would be more integration of different cultures, and America would be the melting pot that it aspires to be. The overarching theme and main conflict of this narrative is the struggle to find identity through conflict. Our protagonist, Esperanza, goes through a series of ideas of who she thinks she is, and is ready to be anything except for someone who belongs on Mango Street. In all of our lives, a balance must be found in who we are, whether that be as a woman, an artist, a Mexican, an American, a kid, or an adult. There is always a struggle to find that balance. The trick of the trade is to find the balance when going through the hardest trials. Esperanza knew what she sexually wanted after she was wrongly sexually assaulted. Esperanza knew that she was a poet after her aunt's encouragement and the escape it provided from Mango Street. Esperanza learned who she was as a woman through the call to come back and always be a part of this community, no matter what her desires were. Our protagonist knows that her identity cannot be found in anything else but in the community that surrounds her. Just as I found that my identity could not be found on what street I grew up on, but the family that surrounds me and the family that loves me. And as long as I had that family around me, the fact that I lived on Harriman Street no longer mattered. The fact that I couldn't visit my neighbors 2 streets away and that I didn't even know them no longer mattered. That is what this novel helped me realize personally. And I hope that whatever race you are or age you are, that it helps you realize something about yourself as well.